Hello everyone, this is Guab, and we're going to be doing a national overview for EA Abyssia. They're a nation that I'm currently playing in a long-form EA game, and yeah, I think that they have a lot of really interesting things about them. And yeah, I played them a lot in Dominions 5. They're one of my three favorite early age nations. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So, what is Abyssia? Abyssia is a nation of the Inferno plane, of fire and blood, of sacrifices, demons, and the eternal flame. They have a lot of really interesting national features. They prefer heat scale +3, and their forts actually protect them from the death from heat. And so on EA Abyssia, you can actually go up to heat 4, which in summer is really common to heat 5. And yeah, heat spreads, so you are going to be spreading heat even further than your Dominion, and you're going to be one of the few nations that's safe from that. They have Wasteland Survival, which is not that useful of a trait. Also, death and growth scales have half the standard effect on income and population, and no effects on supplies. So that's absolutely great from them. And they also get extra golds and resources in cave forts, which is now especially relevant in Dominion 6. They have some of the heaviest infantry in Dominion 6, especially in their early age, with even their most basic troops having 17 protection, though they do come at a heavy price point of 20 gold. They have a lot of fire mages. Their research mage is a fire 2, which was actually a pretty useful path as long as your opponent doesn't have fire resistance. And they have recruit everywhere fire 3 mages as well as earth mages, so this can cast their national spell, Flames of Rux, which is just basically a really big falling fires kind of thing. They also have national flying assassins with poison daggers, and then they also have recruit anywhere assassins. And they also have some really cool beast tamers, and hey, they have some astral and blood mages that are recruit only in the capital, and they have some really heavy fire. So they're a fire nation primarily, then they have a tiny bit of earth, a little bit of blood, and a tiny bit of astral. They can also perform blood sacrifices to spread their dominion, and they have some really strong sacreds. So fundamentally, EA Abyssia is a troop nation that just have some nice mages thrown on. And we'll go over all their troops, and then we'll kind of discuss strategies and all the different spells that you want to cast and everything else. But yeah, just hey, we're going to be able to throw scales more than most people, so just be aware of that and say, oh well, yeah, maybe this is going to lead us into playing blood or something else. Anyway, so here's the most basic unit. Their Abyssian Axe Infantry. It has 17 prot. 13 strength, 10 attack, 7 defense, so it's pretty good. And it hits for a whopping 25 slashing damage, which slashing is probably the best damage type right now. But this is going to absolutely tear through most units. In the early ages, the only units that are going to have above 20 protection are very rare thugs and other stuff, and can absolutely hack apart. These guys are going to be especially good into giants. You can fit 3 a square, so even though 10 attack is not the best, it's very average. You can whittle down the opponent's defense and just absolutely rip them apart. Great unit. If you notice though, their gold is expensive. They're definitely worth the 20 gold, but if you're taking death scales, like this is going to be punishing. But resources really high, recruitment is really low, and we're gonna notice this for most of the troops. They also have fire resistance, and they have a heat aura. Yeah, so and they have dark vision 50%, which is more important for cave layer. So these are actually really good troops. 15 HP, 17 prot. They're gonna survive for a really long time. They're really good at killing big things, and they also have heat aura. So if they're surrounded by chaff, they're still gonna do great. Here are your best, probably non-sacred units, and these are your Abyssian Flail Infantry. They're just like the last ones, except they have a little bit less defense, and they have a flail instead of an axe, which the flails have 2 attacks, and they also have +2 attacks versus shields, +2 attack versus shields, and so they have 1 more attack, they do 2 less damage, but you're going to get 2 attacks out of them, so If you have, three tile, that is 6 attacks. And yeah, 19 damage, nothing to scoff at. These are going to be tearing through stuff. They still have high resources, but these are exceptional troops. These are troops that if they were on any other nation, you'd want to build your entire nation around. If you're running against EA Ulm and would you rather have the Steel Maidens or these? I would actually rather have these guys, just not necessarily on Abyssia. Because you have some income problems. Here's Abyssian infantry. Pretty good if your opponents are running a lot of archers, but most people aren't going to be running archers or ranged against Abyssia because flaming arrows is not good against you. Now that there's poison arrows, maybe these are worth bringing out. Also, I like playing one-age games. I know that that's pretty casual, but hey, I like it. And if you're into crossbows, these are by far your best infantry. These are basically late age heavy infantry in the early age, and they're just so good. And this is less attacks, slightly less damage, but you're still gonna chunk through people with this, and you still have decent defense, decent attack. There's literally nothing to complain about. These are great troops. Just like a lot of other, especially Dark Vision. Dark Vision is so good now. But they're just not really worth it, and people aren't really gonna use archers against you. By far for the most part. Then you have your Morningstar shielded infantry. They're not that good. They get +2 attack versus shields, so maybe you would use them if you're exclusively going to shielded opponents. But they only get 1 attack compared to the flail people that have 2. These are. Once again, flail infantry, really good. Next up, we have our Misbred, which seems like a great unit on the whole. I think it's cap only. But, hey, they're flying. Sure, they don't have much prot. But, they have decent HP, and these are going to absolutely chunk through mages. It doesn't really matter that they're old, because they're kind of shock troops that are going to die in the first battle. But they are stealthy, and they are flying. The problem is that you don't really have a commander to lead these guys. You have no, flying commander. This is an assassin, so he doesn't have any leadership. You could give him leadership with items, and I think that that's what you would have to do if you want to use a large contingent of these. These are also undead or demons. Part undead or demons, so they require undead leadership. But, yeah, it requires undead leadership, but it's not vulnerable to demon spells, and so, hey, your dudes don't have that much undead leadership. Your warlocks have a little bit. I don't think anyone else does. Yeah, none of your... But, your warlocks are super valuable. You're not going to want to waste these guys bringing around hordes of misbreads. So, misbreads, if they're on another nation, they might be good. Is it worth taking a tiny bit of undead leadership for these? And the answer is no. And they also go in the opposite direction of most of your troops. Most of your troops are heavy on resources and low on recruitments. These are high on recruitments and low on resources. And, even if you took your scales specifically for Misbred, these are cap only. So you can't even recruit them anywhere. Which, if you could, it might be worth doing it just for funsies. But there's just too much competition in our cap, which is sadly something Abyssia has a lot of. And then we have Salamanders. Actually pretty good of unit, especially in Dominion 6. The Fire Flare now has infinite attacks. It just is a fatigue cost, so if you get relief up, you can even use them even more. And they do 20 magic damage in an AoE 1, so this is phenomenal, especially early on when there's not that many mages. If you're going to be attacked on the fort, it's super worthwhile to spam out, because they're so cheap resource-wise, and they're also pretty cheap recruitment point-wise. It's really worth, getting out 6 or 8 in order to help defend a fort or whatever when it's being stormed. But they cost 50 gold, so their upkeep is really high. They are animals. They have firepower 1, but that doesn't really matter because you don't want them to get in. You don't want them to be in melee for long. And they have low prot. I guess it's 10 prot, but they still get chewed up really quickly. So, these are actually really good, especially if you're surprising your opponents, but they just get chewed up too easily. And the main thing is they're really expensive. In Dominions 5, I made a mistake of recruiting way too many of them on my border in a war versus another player, and like in Dominions 5, you know, the upkeep was not, you know, upkeep of like 3 of these was worth the upkeep of a mage. I think it's less because these are sacred. Yeah. So anyway, salamanders, actually surprisingly good unit, just a little bit too expensive. Only make them if you know you're going to be using them imminently. Otherwise, they're too expensive and they're undisciplined, so not really worth it. I mean, you have a beast tamer, you know, who can increase their morale and everything else, but he only has 10 leadership, so you know, it's whatever. And then lastly, we have a lot of the reason that people actually play the nation and kind of what makes it really strong, which is the burning ones. They're 70 gold, so they are at a premium price for a sacred unit, but they have heat aura 6, the fire shield, berserk 3, 18 prot. It's going to be 20 prot by the time berserker triggers. They have firepower 1, and guess what? Lots of time we're going to be fighting in fire 4 or fire 5. So we are going to be chunking people with 26 damage. You know, once berserker triggers, and then we have +4. That's going to be it's going to be 19 attack skill. So you know, these are going to be 20 attack skill, and we're going to get 2 hits, and this is such an uber strong unit. It is kind of hard to express. Yes, if your opponents have you know, fire resistance, it's going to be a little bit less good. The fire shield isn't going to be doing anything, nor is the heat. In Dominion 6, I'm fighting an Ubar, and so, you know, these two things aren't doing anything, but like, even if you just take a light bless, they do a lot of work, and berserker, you know, they're not going to worry about morale and everything else. A lot of the time, in Dominions 5, people would run a shock resistance, blood bond, bark skin blessed with them, and you can still do that pretty well in Dominion 6 and just absolutely chunk people. It is without a doubt intimidating. They are size 4, and they have bad formation fighter 2, so that means you can fit 2 of them to a square, but nothing else. One unfortunate thing in Dominion 6 is currently formation fighter is broken. So in Dominion 6, when you spawn them in, they will be 2 to a square, but as soon as they move forward, they will only be 1 to a square. So ironically enough, if you take larger, you don't actually lose any attack density right now. Hopefully that'll be patched pretty soon. Hopefully it'll be patched by the time you watch this video, but hey, it's still not patched right now, so who knows. But anyway, troop line, absolutely insanely good. I guess one thing I forgot to say is that you get 6 fire gems a turn, so you're going to be swimming in those. The Slayer, it's your recruit anywhere assassin. Not that bad. You start the game with 1 of them. If you have, depending on what bless you have, you can make your Slayer sacred instead of your expander, and so then you can have, hey, a sacred assassin, which is always fun. They're worth getting, especially if you know your fort's going to be attacked, and you know, they're basically your scouts. Very useful in war. Their poison daggers, not bad. They kind of lose out with the assassin changes, especially in tavern assassinations. But, you know, hey, they have good stats, good strength. 2 attacks. They're not bad. Usually they win. As long as you're careful, you can use your first assassin that you spawn with to actually do some assassination expansion. Yeah, so I like them. Next up, you have your Beast Tamer, which is a really cheap for a commander, but that's because it only has 10 leadership. It's 60 gold. But what you're getting for the 60 gold is really good. You're getting protection 10, attack 10, strength 15, defense 6, but that's mostly from all your penalties. This is, just to be clear, this is a really, and magic resistance 13, morale 13. Just to be clear, this is a really, really good chassis. And the iron prod is even not that, it's not a good weapon, you know, because it reduces your attack and defense, but it's not necessarily the worst weapon in the world. And you have animal off 4, which is even more important with all the more horses and elephants running around. Something I saw recently which I actually super agree with, and I like the idea, is if you're not running that heavy of a bless, you can thug these guys out for really, really cheap. All you would need to do is put like a GSS on this guy, and suddenly his attack goes to 14, his defense goes to his defense. Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Well, his defense goes to 11, which is not that good, but his strength is 15. I think you deal a whopping 30 some damage. I did the math, but you do 30 some damage with your GSS, and you're also fire resistant, and you have heat and animal awe. Anyway, this is a really interesting option for thugging. It's super cheap, and it already has a really high prot, especially for early age. There is a Yomi who's next to me in my current EA Abyssia game. If I ever have to go to war with the Yomi, my main plan for killing the Dioni, since the Dioni have really high magic resistance, and really high magic resistance, and also fire resistance, is actually going to be counter thugging with beast trainers. It's going to be something that he's not going to expect at all. Here you have your warlords. Pretty standard commander. I used to thug with these. I have since realized that it's not really worth it. The taskmaster is interesting since you do not have any slaves. But yeah, overall good chassis. Usually you'll bless this. You'll make it your profit for your expansion party, and it survives for a really long time. It's like, this is kind of just a regular commander. Is 100 leadership, so that's pretty good. But like, it's kind of just, it's kind of just a normal commander, because you don't really want your commander to go into melee, and so like, sure, the fact that it has 15 strength is nice. It's just not really going to change anything. And then you have your anathema salamanders, which are kind of really overcosted. Are kind of really overcosted mages, because you get 9 research and they're sacred, but it's for 245 gold. You'll see comparatively similar mages for around 200 gold, and like, it's maybe it's partially because you have 2 fire, so you have 2 in 1 path, so hey, you can get to fire 3 and stuff like that. And like, now fire 3 is surprisingly viable, because falling fires is nice, and fireball is great, and you even have nest of salamanders, which is not bad. But these guys are pretty underwhelming, and they don't really add to your magic diversity at all. I would still recruit these as your main research mage, and they're still good as a research mage and a combat mage, because they force your opponent to bring counters, but your opponent was already going to bring counters for fire. But at least they can still summon stuff and not be weak. Something that is really good for them is that they have 70 leadership, and so whenever you send these guys to the front, they can bring a new wave of troops with them. So that's really nice. But like, you are paying for it. They have no prot, low HP. They're just, they're kind of weak chassis. They are sacred, so you can take a Mage Bless if you want. I don't think you should take a Mage Bless on EA Abyssia. I kind of did, but not really. So they're an inefficient research mage, but an okay research mage in combat. But nothing to write home about. In fact, you have amazing troops, so they're balancing out by giving you overcosted mages, which is pretty standard balance. So can't really complain. Next up, you have your anathema dragons. If you're taking drain, these are going to be your research mage, because they have base 13 research. The main reason you would take these is so you can have more fire, which you don't really need, but like, hey, if you need a firestorm caster or something else, you can recruit the anathema dragons. If you're going into fear, these guys are priest level 2, so they can cast Sermon of Courage and cancel out fear effects, but they are old. You can also cast your national spell. They have more magic resistance and morale. It's kind of not really necessary. They do have 80 leadership, so they're regular leader, but like, hey, you don't really need that. So I don't think that in general there's too much reasons to recruit that many anathema dragons, but hey, you'll recruit some of them, and when you do, you won't feel bad. And if you're into fear, you won't feel too bad. But they're so expensive. They're so gosh darn expensive. And Fire 3 is just not that good a path. Like, you can boost to Fire 4, and then whoop-de-doo, you can just do what a Fire 3 did, just a little bit better. Unless you're casting Firestorm or, Heat from Hell or whatnot, but yeah. Not the biggest fan. The Demon Bread, I am a big fan of these. The Flying Assassins, so it can attack people inside forts. It's Dark Vision 100%, good for underground. Typically, what I often do as Abyssia is first turn, I will actually recruit 2 Demon Bread as my commanders, and you can use these guys to really reliably assassin expand in combination with the Slayer. And yeah, they'll take provinces, basically they'll take 1 province every 2 turns between the 3 assassins. Sometimes it'll take 1 province every 3 turns. So hey, it's not the end of the world. It's not bad. It just helps you expand a little bit faster. And by the end of that, they have a lot of experience stars and are a little bit better. Yeah, I mean, they have high map move. They can do whatever you want. You can't really find, these are a great deal for your assassin. It's often worth it to put items on them. And guess what? You can make lifelong protections because you have blood magic. You can also... I don't think that there's any Pokemon items that are fire. With Lucid's thematic gem gen, you can do the Fire 2, the 10 fire that gets 2 temp fire gems, but that's not really worth it in my opinion. I mean, you can give them a bow and shoot while they have lifelong protection running, and that is oftentimes a worthwhile task, but they're just really flexible, great units. The problem is that they're cap only, and so throughout the game, I probably wouldn't get more than 8 or something, and then just keep them alive and equip them so that they're not going to die and going to be effective assassins. And they are effective assassins, so you can do that pretty easily. And they're worthwhile. They are worthwhile. And next up we have Warlock Apprentice, 75 gold, Blood 1 Mage, 7 research. Oh, mwah, this is great actually. Here we have a mage over here, costs more than twice as much for just 2 more research. Hey, if you could, you would want to recruit these everywhere to get your blood economy online and everything else, but unfortunately, these are cap only, so you're never going to recruit these at all during the entire game, unless you really are broke. You still want to use your cap for blood magic, which, hey, if you can't afford a Warlock, then doing a Warlock Apprentice is not a bad option. And then here we have our Warlocks, which I get. It's funny to call them the main workhorse mages of EA Abyssia when you don't, yeah, it's really funny to call them the main workhorse mages of EA Abyssia when, hey, you're only going to be getting them from your cap. But they really are. They have Blood Magic 2, Astral 1, and they can random any of these. You're going to really treasure your Earth randoms, and your Astral randoms are also pretty valuable for for what they can do. But these are so good. You can do all sorts of things with them. They can be both Astral and Communion slaves. That usually in the early game they are Lesser Horror spammers, which is great combat use. They can cast imps. They can do all the good blood stuff. Blood hunt really efficiently, because now Blood 2 is pretty efficient for blood hunting. And they can also do infernal breeding, which they are better at because they have Adept crossbreeder too. Which, hey, infernal breeding is actually pretty good, and it is an Abyssia only kind of thing. So these are amazing. You're gonna want to recruit these every single chance you get. I played a game without them in Dominions 5 because I was mostly doing a heavy Thug Bless, and I was using the Anointed of Rocks, which is your other cap-only mage. But even when I was doing that, I knew that the Warlocks were better. I just wanted to try that out. And then here you have your biggest cap-only mage. It has 5 pass, which is technically really good. And woo, it has heat 13 and fire shield 12 and firepower 2. So if you're in 10, then you're getting 22 fire, 22 attack skill and high strength and high defense and everything else. So like these are actually in magic resistance 18, and these are actually super, super good thugs because they have built-in fire shield. They actually get crazy stats even without a bless. They have earth, so they can do iron skin, temper flesh, bring up their protection way up. And you can put good items on them and stuff like that. So like these are really, really good thugs, and that's even before you get Alteration 7, which once you get Alteration 7 and you get Phoenix power on them, they're exceptionally good, especially because you can get more reinvigoration in Dominion 6 than you could in 5, so you can just go with like a straight blood surge, revig, bless. And so like these are exceptionally good. They're just slow to recruit. You're probably only going to get like 2 or 3 of them in your game because they are priest level 3, so it's really nice to be able to do divine blessing. You can also make one your priest to bring it up to a priest level 4. Though I would probably make one of your warlocks a priest, so it can be a communion master. And so, like, yeah, these are really, really good, actually. They just compete with your other really, really good thing. And they're just slow to recruit, and they cost an oodles, and you're paying a premium for Fire 4. So, like, if you're not using them for thugs, why are you paying so much for this? Like, if you have a Fire 5... just casting elementals, you're quartering fatigue, so I guess you can probably get out 7 elementals before like fatiguing out, but like it's just kind of a waste. Though I will say you do have some get Earth 2 randoms, and those are really valuable because they can forge Earth boots and everything else and help boost you up in Earth. And then some are random Astral and Blood. And so if you're 2 or 3 that you make, you actually end up getting a 10% random. You're going to be really grateful. They can even cast Fire Globals for you better. But they're not going to be your bread and butter. They're Throne Claimers, they're Blessers, they're a lot of different other stuff. They're even heavy thugs. But what they aren't is worth their cost a lot of the time. I guess we'll go over kind of overall strategy now, and then we'll go into the spells including that they want to cast, including national spells, and then we'll briefly go into pretenders. So if you're looking at EA Abyssia, like you're kind of pulled in multiple directions. All of this stuff that you could prefer heat +3. And you get firepower, and your death point are half as effective, and you get 2 bless points. All of this pulls you into a hell bless and trashing your scales and everything else like that. Especially your costly mages make you want to do that. But the other thing is like, and you have great sacreds, but you also have great scales troops that you also want. You also want your great scales troops. Like if you could recruit a bunch of these, that would be really nice. Excuse me. And you also have blood, and so like if you take a lot of death, it's going to be hard for you to find places to blood hunt, especially with now the most efficient blood hunting provinces are 7,500 pop or more, as opposed to 5,000 pop, which it was in Dominions 5. And especially with like high heat on non-forted provinces are going to kill your population. So like you kind of are stuck in 2 directions. One where like, hey, you want to throw all your scales and just invest really hard in your bless and use burning ones and kind of use your anointed of rocks. And then, hey, sometimes maybe your mages can also use it if you want to do other stuff. And I have played that way. It's actually pretty fun. But it just doesn't scale well because you're just like, what are you going to be doing? You less gold, less forts, less research, and sure you can run over your first 2 people or so, but like people are gonna get their fire magic counters online, and then where are you at? And so the other option you have is to kind of ignore the fact that you have super good sacreds. Like, you still take a little bit of a bless, and so they'll still be more efficient. But hey, you can still use your really efficient Abyssian infantry, and you focus more on, finding all of the other, mages to kind of round out your mage lineup and do everything else. And I think that is, it's going to be worse in the early game, but I think that is better later on. Because, like, if you're looking at these, like, these cost 20 gold, they're size 3, you're getting 2 hits. 3 of these guys, which costs 10 gold less, is going to actually beat a burning one. And, like, it's kind of unfair because they have fire resistance, so they're not going to be weak. But, like, it's hard for me to kind of get across just how good these Abyssian infantries are, but they are expensive. So it's just something to consider, like, as you're designing pretenders and everything else. It's just like, well, you kind of need pop if you're blood hunting, though. You can always keep expanding and then blood hunting there. I just prefer a more stable blood hunting setup. But yeah, anyway, let's go ahead and go on to the and so, like, yeah, you're kind of torn between those two strategies. Though I think that the heavy bless is probably better, especially if you're new. Though the next game I play, so I played a heavy bless that is also useful for mages in my current game, and I'll go over that and stuff when we get to that section. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. You're, in some ways, you're kind of stuck with the Asphodel problem, where you would like growth, you would like to use your scale troops, because hey, they're great, but you're also super rewarded for taking death, and it gives you heavier bless, but, like, it kind of leaves you in a trap. And so, like, for Asphodel, in Dominions 5, you have an amazing sacred and you're taking growth, and so, like, hey, you want to take an amazing bless for your amazing sacred, but, like, hey, your nation's going to be dying over time, and you're not going to be able to keep recruiting that amazing sacred for long. Oh, and sorry, and people might just think I'm talking in circles and just being crazy, because hey, you can just keep recruiting burning ones forever. And one thing I forgot to mention is that Abyssia in Dominions 6, and in Dominions 5, they start with a wasteland as their cap. Not necessarily if you're doing random map, but if you're doing map nuke and stuff, you're always going to start with a wasteland. And as you can see, they're a hot wasteland at the center, which lies a great volcano. So, thematically, they're supposed to start with a wasteland. But with a wasteland, they're losing 6% and death 3. They're losing 6%, I think it is. Oh, no, it's 0.6% of your pop every turn. So, like, eventually you're not going to be able to recruit your burning ones, even though they only require 13 recruitment points. So it's just something to keep in mind. And there is a fix for that, which I will go into in the spell section, which we are now in. So, EA Abyssia actually has 4. Wait, let me check to make sure. Yeah, okay, cool. It is picking this up. So EA Abyssia actually has 5 unique spells, though only 4 are kind of worth casting. You have Summon Spectral Infantry, which gives you Smolder Ghosts, which have a magic weapon and are ethereal. And they're pretty good overall, though they have no protection. The problem is you have no fire death as natural paths. If you're playing with worthy heroes, you get a fire death cross path. And so then, and it's a multi-hero, so then, hey, you can use that to spam these out. And it's a little bit too getting 5 Smolder Ghosts is not necessarily worth a Pretender turn, especially because there's no plus here, so, like, we're only getting 5. I'll say in my current game versus Ubar, I am using my Pretender to recruit these, but that's just because it's kind of a desperate situation. But I mean, they're good. They're good. You just don't know how you're going to be able to recruit them usually, and so you're not going to be able to do that. Pride Alliance, as it even says here, you don't want to spend your nature gems on these. Even if you do get nature 2 mages that you can just jam out these, you're not going to do it. I mean, you do have your Beastmaster, yay, but it's just not worth it. Scorpion Man, you know, it's Conj 8. You know, it's it's not really worth it. I mean, they look freaking cool and they are sacred. But yeah, I mean, yeah, as this says, it's just they just come out too late, and 12 Earth Gems for this. I mean, it's pretty fucking cool. With 21 prot and 42 HP, so like if you have regeneration, wow, cool, you know. But yeah, they're just so late. Maybe if you were doing tarts, you could get them on the way, but no, I kid. You know, you're not gonna be getting Scorpion Men's realistically. Hellscape, really good, especially in Dominion 6. And you're gonna be getting Alt 6 anyway. So it gives heat scale +3, death scale +1. If you're going to fight in a province, especially against any cold nations, Hellscape is really amazing. Gives your troops more firepower, and is great. And then, oh shoot, I forgot about. Okay. And before we go into Infernal Breeding, because that's going to bring up its own tab, there's Liquid Flame of Rux. This is not changed for Dominions 5, Dominion 6. It's Evo 5. Pretty good. Does a lot of armor piercing damage. Heat fire. If your opponent doesn't have fire mages or like fire resistant, it's good. You can cast it with your, not your base dudes, but your dudes, one up from it. Your Anathema dragons. It can be only 10 fatigue, so that's great for this spell. Because they'll cost firepower. So like it's really good. But like, most times people are gonna have fire resistance against you. So yeah, it's nothing super to write home about. And Inner Furnace, enchantment 5, for 1 gem. It increases your heat aura by 3. This was better in Dominions 5 than it is in Dominion 6, because now the heat aura is kind of shared between all the units and it just makes it larger. I mean, you're going to have the fire gems to spare. You get 6 a turn, and you're going to eventually get enchantment 5 for Heat from Hell, flaming arrows, for when you recruit indies and everything else. So like, it's on the way. You might as well cast it every battle because it's better than not casting it. It just doesn't make as big as difference as a lot of people would think it would. And then lastly, let's go to Infernal Breeding. You get a lot of really cool, unique health spawn from here that are usually high hit points, low prot, though a lot of them are firepower. And eventually you're going to be trying to replace most of your infantry with all these, different units. The Hellbred Giants are are especially big in EA, and they're probably the best ones. They prot 19, health HP 65, and you also get commanders and stuff through them. I don't know super well what to say about it. Adept Crossbreeder is good for makes more, which your warlocks naturally have Adept Crossbreeder. So hey, that's great. You'll get slightly more. You have a god option that gives you Adept Crossbreeder, and you also have a hero which gives you Adept Crossbreeder 2. Because of Infernal Breeding, you kind of want to take Blood. Yes, because of Infernal Breeding, you kind of want to take Luck 2 or Misfortune 2, because it generates better results, but, it's just kind of, hey, these are here, these are amazing, you want to replace your troops with these, but they cost a lot of Blood Slaves, but they're really good, and you're going to be kind of rushing Blood 4 anyway, both for Blood Fecundity, which I'll show you, and then also Summon Lesser Horror. They're big power boost. But yeah, that's that. Pretty straightforward. And then we'll go into some of the other spells that are really useful for you. And so the first one is Blood Fecundity, which is growth +2, and duration is 1 for each other extra month it is, and it adds 2 growth to the province. And so you might be like, hey, well, that doesn't seem super good. You know, if you take growth 2, it gets you up to like growth 4. Like, what good is this? If you are playing Scales Abyssia, including going growth 2, the only way to stop your cap from being reduced to rubble is to change it from a wasteland to a forest, which if you get to growth 4, for I think it's like 15 turns, it will on average have turned into a forest. And so we want, like, if we can, we want to use Blood Fecundity to turn our bad province types into forests. It is a good idea. Wastelands have, I think, -4 growth. Forests have neutral growth. So it's just, it is the worthwhile thing to do. Man, keep going the wrong tab. And then the other spell that is super relevant for us, Summon Imps, is relevant. It's just great to summon Imps. They attack enemy mages. They can kill stuff. Really good spell. Oh, it's because I don't have the right cross path selected. There we go. Turn off nature. Okay, there we go. Call Lesser Horror. And you sacrifice 2 blood slaves, and you attract lesser horrors, and you get to send them to attack people. You're going to be communioning up your warlocks in order to spam cast this during battles. The lesser horrors are really good. They will attack you, and once they kill your opponents, they will kill you. But the beautiful thing is, for Abyssia, actually, is that horrors don't have elemental resistances. So your fire mages that are not the most effective against your opponents are really effective against the horrors that are effective against your opponents. So, I've had a massive battle where I had both a lot of, fire mages and then was also spamming Call Lesser Horrors. And my fire mages were killing the horrors that were coming towards me with Incinerate spam. And it was kind of beautiful to see my mages working together like that. So go team. But a lot of times, so Call Lesser Horror is one of the best. Call Lesser Horror with Send Lesser Horror are some of the best blood spells in the game. And Abyssia is often known as a horror nation because, hey, we have easy access to both of these. We don't have easy access to Send Lesser Horror. If we ever random an Astro 2 Warlock, that's when you want to put a cap on it and also give it a Blood Dagger, and then it becomes one of your Send Lesser Horror spammers because this is a ritual. But calling Lesser Horrors is going to be something you want to do. Blood Fecundity is going to be something you want to do. I think a good research path for you is to go Evo 3, Conj 3, Thom 1, make sure you have Conj 1, make sure you have everything you need. And then you can go Blood 4. I don't think that's a bad research path. If you're fighting someone who has fire resistance, so like Ubar, the new fire giant nation, then just rushing Blood 4 straight, not necessarily the worst idea. Even going Conj 4 if you're fighting someone who's fire resistance, not a bad idea. So let's go ahead and go over. So Evo 3 Fireball, they changed it from fatigue damage to actual damage. So this is armor piercing 6. So it'll ignore 40% of the opponent's armor. Since most people in EA only have about, and that's not including the AoE one where it hits. Considering the fact that most people in EA only have about 10 armor, if you're ignoring 40%, 6, it's just going to be a roll of the die. But it's big AoE now. It will definitely damage the person who it hits, unless they have a lot of fire resistance, of course. And your mages are gonna be fire 2. They're gonna cast Phoenix Power. They're gonna be fire 3. They can spam these out at 10 fatigue apiece. for 35 range. It's pretty valuable, and they're going to be doing a lot of damage through fireballs. And so like an early Eva 3 rush, not a bad plan. Falling Fires, actually really good. Huge AoE, less damage, because it's 15 damage, but it still is kind of like a weaker Gifts from the Heaven that is fire damage, because it also projectiles fall vertically because things are delayed. Does a lot of damage, very impressive. Might not be good against cavalry. Not necessarily worth going all the way up here. We can also fire from afar. It's underwhelming now in Dominions 6, and it was already kind of underwhelming. And then, also, you have Firestorm and everything else, but we're just going to focus on some early research. Transmute Fire, pretty good. Turns 10 gems into 350 gold, which is at the rate of 1 gem for 35 gold. Pretty good. I mean, gold is more common with the population changes and everything else, but Transmute Fire is worth it. Distill Gold can even be good, even though it gives you 100 less gold. It can help you get your infrastructure up on early, and that is really, really important for really important for protecting your population, because your forts are the only thing that protects your population from the cold. Combustion, Incinerate, these are good single target anti-thug stuff. Phoenix Power, important. Summon Lesser Fire Elemental, kind of really bad now. And you have Nest of Salamanders? Oh my. Okay. You have Nest of Salamanders. This is Conch 4. It costs a gem, and it's only Fire 2 as opposed to a Fire Elemental. Nest of Salamanders are better blockers than Fire Elementals, but they're not going to be doing as much damage. But in general, I actually do think Nest of Salamanders are better. You have 6 freaking fire income. You have the fire income to be casting Transmute Fire and, Distill Gold. You have the fire income to be spending a lot of gems. You can cast Nest of Salamanders twice as many times as you can cast Summon Fire Elemental, and they're going to hold the line remarkably well. As you can see, they have decent defense. You get 10 of them, and they also have Flame Poison Bite, which does really high damage, but it can also be resisted with poison or fire. Nest of Salamanders is a new spell in Dominion 6, and it's really good. So I'm a big fan. Big fan. And then there's the new Thom spells, which give more attack skill and morale. Kind of mid. You have Flaming Arrows at Enchantment 5. I mean, you're going to head in this direction anyway, so that's good to have, especially with Indie Archers or whatever else you're going to be doing. Heat from Hell good, and it also matches with Eternal Pyre, so you can't complain. And Gift of Furies is not bad. Affects a huge area at 20, but unless you're into, because you can spam the spam whatever priest level 2 it is spell that increases your courage. It's not Sermon of Courage, because that's the Holy 3. I forget what the Holy 2 spell is, but if you're having problems with fear, you can use that. And you don't really have problems with attack, though more attack is always good. So those are kind of all the spells that you really want to focus on in the early game. So Evo 3, maybe Conch 3, maybe Conch 4, if you want to be able to transfer your gems into power. And then Blood 4 is going to be your standard research path. Some pretender options are... this is one of my favorite options, actually, and this is the one that I'm running in my current Abysia game, is a Dormant Site Searcher. You really struggle with variety of magic with Abysia. You're basically just fire with a little bit of blood. It's cap only. This has Adept Crossbreeder 8, so you can use it to do your infernal breeding way better. This is really good bless for your mages. it effectively, 5 heroism is a little bit better than 1 magic scale. So this is effectively a magic 3. So even though your mages aren't the most cost-effective researchers, it is actually pretty useful. And sorry. And you might think that with Fire 4, Death 3, you're going to be losing pop everywhere, but if you have plains with rivers, which are not uncommon, and if you have farmland, you're actually still going to be gaining 0.1% pop every turn, even with Death 3 and Fire 4. And we can afford to throw Turmoil Order because none of our troops require that many recruitment points, and Order Productivity 2 is super necessary if we want enough Sacreds out. This is really low on candles, but that's because this is mostly a Mage Bless, as I said before. And the plan for this is, if you notice I have Revig 4, Blood Surge Heroism. The plan for this is mostly, once I get Construction 5, is just going to be slapping Sacred Shrouds on every single mage, every single commander I can have, to give them forward vig, 5 heroism, and shock and cold resistance. And this is going to make my mages a lot more survivable. So basically the plan is to find a lot of new mages that are not sacred or whatever, slap Sacred Shrouds on them, and make them even more cost effective. And that's essentially my scaling plan here. In addition, I can cast vampires and everything else. And I have the diversity, so I can research and get all the gems and stuff. So, I'm going to be using this boy. I mean, my Sacreds are still strong with Revig 4, Blood Surge Heroism, and, the resists. Burning Ones are no joke. But you basically use this to parlay into magic diversity and magical power. And I'm quite happy with it so far. Here's a Hellbless. Blood Bond, Enchanted Blood, Bark Skin, Shock Resistance. This is even better than you would typically run in Dominions 5. You can do Turmoil 3 and still produce enough Sacreds. Similar scales, just it's pretty rough to go Turmoil 3, Misfortune 2, especially with how damaging the events are now, but hey, it's what works, and we have Productivity 2, so we can still produce most of these boys. This is really good early game, helps run over people. And this is a astral blood fountain, so it can teleport around and do magic. It can do lesser horrors, but it is not mindless, so still has some vulnerability to horrors and stuff. But yeah, it's this is overall good chassis, and he can even use shockwaves and other stuff like that when people are attacking him. Do howl, do all sorts of other good stuff. So this is not bad. He can't do vampires and other stuff like that, which is kind of pretty important. But hey, if you're running Hellblesses and taking it to the extreme, this is a great option for you. And then lastly, we have Scales Abyssia. This is, I would not. This is not how I'd run Scales Abyssia. I was the nice thing is hey, he has Forge bonus 2, so. In combination with a hammer, you can make Sacred Shrouds for 1, and you can put them on your mages and make them really good. But you really don't need Order at all. I could throw Order here. I should have thrown Order here to 0, and then taken at least a point of growth. But he's dormant. He can teleport. He can forge stuff really well. So this guy is good dormant defender. He can come out and do a lot of work. But you really don't need a dormant defender. You're strong enough to just fight on your own. I would redo scales something else. Because if I'm playing EA Abyssia, if I was really going scales, you would want something that has. Do we have anything that has production? Do we actually? Is there no production? Okay, well I guess we would actually need to go something that has growth. And the reason we need to go something that has growth, Oh, sorry. The reason we need to... okay. That's the reason why I did this, guys, because he has productivity scale limit. Right. Okay, yeah, that's not a bad option, but still with Wasteland, your fort is going to slowly die. If you really want to, what you need to do is, if you take a growth pretender, you can go growth 2, and then you can rush blood forward, cast blood fecundity, and transform your wasteland into a forest, and that is not a bad way to go. We'll hop into my game for just a second, just because I kind of want to show. So, like, this province started out with 45,000 people, roughly, and we're only on turn... yeah, we're on turn 28, and we've already lost 13,000 people, and we're losing... Oh, yeah. We're losing 0.7 a turn. You know, that's pretty brutal. But in any province that's not our capital... that's not... sorry, this is not forted, and so, of course, we're losing a lot. But, like, hey, look in this farmland. We're gaining 0.2 pop. And look over here. We're gaining 0 pop. But, hey, at least we're not losing anything. And here we're gaining 0.1. And so this is, like, even though we have such terrible scales, you know, our pops are doing fine. If our capital is not a wasteland, I would consider this pretty viable. I guess we still have enough recruitment points. We're not really at risk there. It just feels bad to watch your capital waste away. And if we look at our score graphs, our provinces number hasn't changed that much. But if you look at our income, it's not going up, it's not going down. Even with Death 3 and Heat 4, Heat 4 was my bless, my income is steady. And so, like, that's kind of pretty amazing that you can do that as Abyssia. It really is a superpower. You just need to figure out what way you are going to scale as Abyssia, because that is the struggle. Oh, and I guess I'll show off one more thing. I want to show off the effects of the site searcher. Yeah, so as my god has site searched all of these, and because he's been able to site search all of these, he's been able to find like the Alchemist Guilds to get some more variety, and also the Citadel of Lore Masters, and those are sites that I wouldn't have found yet. Oopsie, that I wouldn't have found yet if I didn't have my god out here. Site searching, and now my god is currently fighting, but like, it's a dormant site searcher is surprisingly valuable, and like, I've only searched a tiny fraction of my land, and yet I've already found those sites. So it's really good for magic diversity and everything else. Though I will say, this game I lucked out and I found more astral than I normally would, and so I can use my warlocks just as my communion masters, and all the other astral dudes I found as communion slaves, and that leads to pretty good results. Yeah, okay, that was a lot, but I feel pretty confident for how I covered EA Abysia. Next game I play is EA Abysia, so I've played EA Abysia kind of as a Fire Nation only, and just using them to thug and do other fire interesting stuff, and that worked pretty well, and, you know, that was pretty Hellblessy, but I enjoyed it. It was fun to play. I was the second largest power at the end of the game, but I just couldn't beat the TNN. He was just way more dynamic. And now I'm doing it more as a blood and like magic diversity and mage pathway, and it feels pretty strong. I should not have picked my first war with Ubar. I should have went for Urmor instead. But, you know, hey, I was able to bully Baratos out of a lot of land. I have 2 of Baratos land that should be Baratos. It's not, you know, like, it's in his cap circle. Well, you know, it's in the 8 around his capital, but it's not directly in his cap circle. You know, so expansion was pretty strong, even with, like, a mediocre bless like that. And then next time I play him, I'll play Scales, and I'll try to run Blood Fecundity, and try to, like, really go for growth and everything else like that, and we'll see how that works. And we'll, you know, use most of our other troops and stuff. But, yeah, EA Abyssia, you have a lot of flexibility. I really like the nation. You have a lot of tools that don't have anywhere to go, because, like, you have your flying guys that require undead leadership and are cap only. You have your Anointed of Rocks, which is cap only, so, like, you don't really have the turns for it, and yeah, you're just kind of super gated as a nation, and if you can find a way to be ungated, then you're in gold. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. If you're still listening now, you should probably subscribe, because why not? You will listen to an hour-long video. And yeah, if you guys liked it, let me know, and I can do some more national overviews, and maybe I will show off some of my Abysia gameplay for what it is. And yeah, thanks you guys for listening. See you. Catch you next time. Bye.